Have you ever been playing a match of Outcome Memories and thinking, man, I'm not really good at Survivor, or I can't really get anybody as the EXE? Well, this happens to most people since it is a pretty hard game to master. It's almost like you might need a guide. An ultimate guide. Well, in today's video, we're going to be doing an ultimate Outcome Memories guide before version 0.2. This will go over all of the survivors, all the EXEs, all the maps, and other things you should know. There's also timestamps in the video, so you can skip to certain sections depending on who you play. But make sure to like and subscribe so you get more content like this, and let's begin with the first and probably most popular survivor. The first person we're going to be talking about is how to play Sonic. Now, Sonic can sometimes be considered the most flawed and most broken at the same time, so it might depend on how you use him. With his abilities, there are many different ways you can play, either by just playing bronze and brains, or kind of sneaking up on the EXE. What I mean by this is looking at his first ability, known as Drop Dash. How Drop Dash works is basically you click the ability and you're invincible for around 8 to 10 seconds, where if you hit the EXE, it stuns him and gives you your HP back. Now, if you hit the EXE 3 times in a row, then it does a super stun, stunning the EXE and pushing him back. Now, the reason why I say you have to time your ability is because the EXE's abilities can easily counter Sonic. If 2011X turns invisible, well then you just can't hit anybody. Or if 2011X literally just jumps, then you're pretty much screwed. So what you have to do is make sure to use it either right beside the EXE, from behind so they don't see you if they're chasing someone else, or from the left or the right so they don't catch you. When doing so, you can most likely hit at least 1 to 3 of your stuns, which can really help out your teammates if they're in a chase. Also, because of Sonic's 2 passives, this ability works a lot better. His first passive is Overshield. How this Overshield works is basically you have additional 50 HP that you can recharge with Drop Dash. Every hit in the free hit combo heals you for 10. And his second passive that really isn't considered as passive is the fact that you're able to chain stuns. This means, let's just say Tails shoot the EXE with a laser beam. Well then, if you drop dash into the EXE, the stun will be smaller, but you can still stun the EXE. Using these abilities can help out your teammates greatly, since during chase, many of the survivors in this game don't really have that much, and if they're not good at juking, they're in trouble. And that comes on to our second ability that Sonic has. Sonic's second ability is known as Peel Out. Peel Out's a pretty interesting ability, where you stand still for 3 seconds. When doing so, you slowly charge up, and then speed blitz in any direction you want. And when I mean you go fast, you go fast. As you see inside of the clips, you're able to run around really fast, and you are able to grab teammates. The only 2 survivors though you cannot grab is Eggman because of his size, and Metal Sonic because of his weight. But every other survivor is in ground, so basically you're able to run up, grab them, and bring them out of danger. Now, for a tip that many people might not know, is Peel Out actually has 2 different cooldowns. If you just run with Peel Out to any direction, it's around a 41-second cooldown. This is the second largest cooldown inside of the game, but there is a difference. If you grab somebody and carry them until the end of your Peel Out, the cooldown reduced from 41 to 26. This is a 15-second decrease in your time, and basically even faster than your drop dash ability. You can only get this perk if you're carrying a survivor as your ability ends. And remember, Peel Out is 7 seconds, and survivors can drop out whenever they want. So say if you accidentally grab Knuckles, well then he can just bounce out and continue fighting the EXE. And because of that, the ability can work out very well, but you have to make sure you play with your teammates above time so you can consistently use your Peel Out ability. But coming to overall usage, Sonic should be known as a stunner. Sonic is really good with stunning abilities, like I said, because you're able to push him away, and many maps in this game have higher and lower elevations. So if you get him on a staircase, for example, because of ragdoll physics, EXE just starts going down the staircase to oblivion. And one thing to mention is when you're using Peel Out and your drop dash ability, you are able to jump. Many times I don't see people do this, but you are able to jump using these abilities. So sometimes you're able to clear gaps you're not normally able to, or you're able to get the EXE if he tries jumping over you. But one downside you do have to worry about when using Sonic is lag. Inside of the game, lag can kind of depend on his drop dash, since inside of many clips, you can see people hit the EXE but just phase right through them, because technically from the EXE's perspective, they're already in a farther part. And normally you can counteract this by following the EXE in direction, but depending on your lag and the EXE lag, it can become pretty challenging to hit them. But I mean, if the EXE has lag, you're kind of already winning. And for cosmetic tips, since cosmetics do kind of help you. On maps such as Hill or Hill Gym, I recommend wearing a black Sonic just because you're able to better blend in because of the dark undertone in the maps. Also, 2 things I recommend you don't wear is any cloak that moves with you or any effects that have particles. Now, this might not really sound like a reason, which I mean, you can wear whatever you want, but technically these do leave a trail or movement that the EXE can see. So even though you might be hiding behind a wall, the EXE might have seen your trail last second and knows where you are now. But overall, Sonic is an S tier character that honestly, you don't really need much skill to use. All you have to remember is to use your drop dashes efficiently and also to use your peel outs when your teammates need it. But before we go on to the next character, I want to say make sure to join the Discord in the link below. But anyways, let's continue on. For this part, we're going to be doing the first and only EXE inside of the game just to get him out of the way, since believe me, he is pretty bad. Of course, if you don't know what I'm talking about, we are going over 2011X, which is the first and only EXE in the game. How 2011X works is he's a rushdown and kind of a trickster EXE. Many of his abilities are able to distort your screen or catch you off guard, or just generally be faster than you. And we'll be going over every single one of his abilities. Starting with invisibility. Invisibility turns the EXE invisible, go figure, but it makes you completely invisible to any attacks. So if you see a Tails or a Sonic about to hit you, you can just turn invisible and they can't. Then, during invisibility, if you get close to another survivor, you actually see them show up on your screen, kind of like a close range indicator, and you are able to teleport to their position. Also, during this time, your speed is significantly increased, but you cannot jump during invisibility, so don't try. The only way you can gain elevation is either by making sure there's a ramp there, or hitting one of the bouncers. But one thing you do have to know about invisibility is end lag. If you appear too close to a survivor or teleport to a survivor, you have around 2-second egg lag where you're unable to move and basically the survivors can either stun you or get away. Now to counteract this, you could try coming out of invisibility a little bit earlier so you show up onto the characters a lot faster, but there is a giant bubble around it since it did get nerfed recently. This means that you might come out of the invisibility too far away and still hit the range of the survivor and you're just halfway across the map. So with invisibility, I always recommend using it at the beginning of a match or if you don't know where someone is and you don't have your God's Trickery ability ready. Visibility works very well when trying to catch somebody off guard because even though it does have a large range, if they're inside of a room and you're outside of that room and you come out of invisibility, you can catch them. Now, onto the second ability I just stated, known as God's Trickery. How God's Trickery works is around every 40 seconds, you're able to use the ability and you kind of turn invisible. Then you teleport to a random survivor. From a survivor's perspective, only 5 out of the 7 characters will actually get a screen effect. When this effect happens, there's 4 different modes that the EXE has that you have to dodge. If the EXE is orange, like Undertale's, you move. If the EXE is blue, like Undertale's again, then you don't move. If the EXE is normal or black, you want to jump and avoid to the left or to the right. In order to tell if a real EXE is on you, since like I said, the hallucination is still up for 5 people, you'll hear the chase theme actually start. So you'll only hear the chase theme if he's directly on you, or if you see 2 2011X's, then you know the one on you is a fake and the real one is on someone else. But going back to 2011X, this works out really well for him since he doesn't technically have an indicator ability. But using this ability allows you to perfectly teleport to anybody. Then for his next ability is known as Grab. How Grab works is basically you start charging up for 3 seconds. After this, you put your hands in front of you and you can fly in any direction towards the survivors. If you hit a survivor with your hitbox, well you put them into a grab minigame. You start doing 2 damage per second or 1 damage to Metal Sonic at a faster pace since he is metal, and basically you start damaging them. In order for survivors to escape this, and how you should escape this, is you use your arrow keys or on mobile you click buttons on your screen. Basically, the more accurate you are, the more faster it goes, and depending on your HP is how fast the bar at the bottom fills up. So if you're at full HP or during last man standing, well basically you're able to heal up pretty fast. Say if you're in last man standing or at full HP, it takes significantly longer to complete the game and you take more damage compared to someone who's at 60 HP and almost dead. Also, if you reach 25 HP inside this minigame as a survivor, you're just done for. Instead of getting you to 0 HP like a normal attack, if he gets you to 25, it just takes you out. So as 2011X, you can use this to your advantage by going forward and grabbing survivors just as they're low enough and it takes them out really fast instead of having to actually hit them. And then for his final and probably most broken ability is Outrage. In order to get Outrage, you have to be stunned for around, I want to say 30 seconds. Every time you get stunned, the bar slowly fills up until it reaches the top. When this happens, you stop the timer at the top, and for 1 minute and 30 seconds, you're inside of Outrage. In this time, you do 50 damage instead of a normal 42. You can turn invisible, but it works as an indicator stopping you. You can't use God's Trickery because, like I said, you have indicators. Your grab ability now does 3 damage per second, or significantly faster on Metal Sonic. And you overall are just really fast, and stuns are reduced to an absolute abysmal. I mean, they're reduced so much that literally an Eggman stun allows you just to stand still for a second. It's kind of like he just kicked his foot. Now, during this time, you want to make sure to go for any survivor you see. Because of this, you're able to two-shot most of the characters inside of the game. And using your outrage is almost a necessity because of characters I'll mention later. But the reason why I state that 2011X isn't the best, and many people don't actually play him, is because of his weaker damage. Yes, he does 42 damage, but if you keep getting stunned, doesn't matter what mode you're in, because of 2 survivors, they're able to heal up most of your team, and you're able to do no damage. So that's the reason why you see in many matches, the EXE has like A elimination, or 0. It's because if you don't properly play him like this, well then, you can't really do much. You have to make sure to run after survivors, but don't make it too obvious, as many abilities, if you're running a straight line, will hit you. You have to make sure if a survivors try turning back or using any block ability, you just don't attack. Basically, you have to try to bait them out. But speaking of baiting, this is going on to our next survivor. Coming up next is probably the best survivalist and, well, really only survivalist inside of the game. This character is known as Eggman. Here's the thing you don't know about Eggman. He is actually really good, even after his like 20 nerfs. How Eggman works is he has 2 passives and 2 abilities. His first passive allows Metal Sonic, which is a character we'll get into soon, allows to heal him double the speed, but he basically has to be standing on top of him for this to work. His second passive, and probably most broken ability in this game, is known as Double Jump. Every 10 seconds, you're able to use your Double Jump ability, where if you jump once, you're able to gain additional height like a double jump. Before, this cooldown was only 5 seconds, but it was almost impossible to catch Eggman before. Even now, on maps like Green Hill or Hill Gym, you're able to gain so much height that the only way the EXE can reach you is with one of his abilities, and even then, it comes into your first ability where you can't even touch him. His first ability is Force Field. How Force Field works is basically for around 5 to 6 seconds, you become completely invincible. During this time, if the EXE hits you, it stuns him and knocks him back, but the stun is really small. But say if the EXE doesn't hit you during this, well actually the stun, let's just say the EXE doesn't hit you during this, you actually enter an end lag. During this end lag, you can't use your other abilities and basically you're sitting duck for 3 seconds. But Eggman does technically have a secret passive as well. Eggman's secret passive is he able to jump a lot more than a normal survivor. Normal survivor could jump once and maybe like a second or 2 later could jump. Eggman's basically bouncing all around. Even if you drop roll from a height or something, you can easily just keep jumping and it is very annoying to hit as the EXE. And paired with a force field, if you're trying to grab him with a grab ability or God's trickery, if they use a shield, since it's almost a guarantee that you'll hit them, well basically you just got stunned, and yeah. And then the final part of Eggman's master plan is his speed boost. His ability known as Jetpack, basically for around 3 seconds, allows you to run really fast. Not as fast as Sonic's Pilo, but still in a really incredible speed. When running like this, you're able to easily escape the EXE, and you're also not invincible. Kind of like Sonic since he had the shield, his hitbox does get bigger, but as Eggman you have to be careful because you can still be hit by the EXE. And now, before you could use these 2 abilities, Force Field and his Jetpack boost together, but inside future updates like this one, you are unable to use it anymore. This might sound like a bummer, but honestly, it was so hard to catch Eggman. If we had a whole ranking, many characters would be in S tier, Eggman would be in Z tier. He was really busted. I'm pretty sure the most or second most nerfed character inside the game. Now, how you want to play him is like in his name, a survivalist. He doesn't really have any abilities that help out his team. Literally, the only thing you should really do is stand nearby a Tails or make sure you know where Metal Sonic is so he can heal. Other than that, you're really just trying to either juke out the EXE and get him to follow you since you're easily able to escape chase as him, or really just stay back. And of course, Eggman has voice lines, which is perfect. But now, during Last Man Standing, he actually does have some couple special abilities. During Last Man Standing, his ability is that his force field attack is significantly increased. This means instead of stunning normally and only taking a 0.25 seconds before the EXE get back up, once stunned during Last Man Standing, it's a whole 3 to 4 seconds. This means during Last Man Standing, if the EXE hits Eggman, they are severely punished for doing so. And of course, during Last Man Standing, I recommend that you really manage your speed boost. If you're not near the EXE before the chase starts, if you try using God's Trickery, then as soon as you use the ability, I recommend you use your Jetpack boost to get out of there. They might have invisibility to chase you, but having that big distance and there's a chance of him using their end leg, it's really helpful. It's also important to know that Eggman, like every other character, gets 165 HP during Last Man Standing. Now, even though he is a survivalist, he can also work as a shielder. Depending on what happens, you could block an attack from somebody else, say if a Tails is charging up. But because of lag, there's many times where you could go for a block and he just phases through you and still attacks the survivor. I don't really know how the hit scan works inside of this game, so yes. But if you really want to play Eggman effectively, Stay back, make sure to help out when you can. If you're in chase, always use your double jump whenever you can. Even if it isn't to gain any height, you could juke out the EXE by jumping once in a forward direction, then jumping again in the backwards direction, because they might think you're going a certain way. It also works really well your double jump if you want to get a barrel roll, which gives you extra distance. Then, because of how short his cooldowns are, you always want to loop the EXE where a place he can't normally hit you, for example on Green Hill at a high spot, because most of the time he can't jump up there, and you can only jump up there with your double jump. Then wait for your abilities and complete the cycle again. This is widely known why Eggman is one of the most annoying survivors in the game, if played well. And I think after this video, you guys can definitely annoy any EXE, whoever complaining about how good Eggman is, because believe me, he's good. But while we're on to the topic of Eggman, why don't we go to his partner in crime. Coming up next is Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic is the inferior version of Sonic, and the second inferior version of Sonic, if we're including 2011X. How Metal Sonic works inside of this game is pretty interesting. If you don't know, if you haven't played him or seen the game before, every other survivor has 100 HP, except for Sonic with a 50 overshield, but that doesn't really count. Metal Sonic, on the other hand, has 175 HP. Also, if he isn't below 100 HP, well, he technically has a 50% damage reduction. This means instead of taking the normal 42 damage, until he reaches 100 HP, he takes 21 damage. He also has a pretty neat passive, where basically he's able to heal faster near Eggman and Tails, like I said earlier, but he also has a passive where he has an indicator. If the EXE is invisible or nearby, you'll start hearing a beeping sound coming from it. I'm pretty sure only Metal Sonic himself can hear this because other characters can't, but it allows you to know where the EXE is. And if it stops beeping, it either means the EXE has left the area or he's right beside you. Now, with your HP, there comes one major downside that you might have not noticed. Every other survivor in this game can be revived once, basically when they're down. Metal Sonic, on the other hand, does not have this ability. This means if you lose your 175 HP, you're just over. You're done. And of course, if the EXE does a final blow to you, the EXE gets stunned for like 8 seconds. So it could work sometimes if you're trying to save a teammate, but honestly, it's not likely because of your abilities shouldn't really allow this to happen. His first ability is known as self-repair. How self-repair works is basically you stand still for around 14 seconds, and every 2 seconds you heal an interval of 7. This basically gives you a max of 70 HP. This basically gives you a max of 70 HP, which is pretty good because every time you get hit, you can just heal up. And because of this, you can only heal up to a maximum of 150 HP. Even though you start off with 175, you can only go up to 150. But there is one downside of using this ability. If you're using it alone and the EXE catches you, doesn't matter your HP amount, even though you do have above 100 HP, which gives you a damage reduction, it no longer works, and I'm pretty sure you take either double damage or initial damage. This means if you're healing, you're only at like 105 HP, instead of taking 21 damage, you take 42 damage. This also cancels the ability and basically puts it on cooldown. Now this is very challenging for Metal Sonic players, because if you aren't lucky enough where the EXE isn't chasing you, well, you're practically screwed. And his second ability somehow helps and does not help with this at the same time. His second ability is known as Destructive Charge. You stand still for around 1 second, and afterwards you start dashing forwards. When this happens, if you hit the EXE, you can either slam him into a wall, doing around 42 damage to yourself, and stunning him for a large amount of time, or you end up stunning him in the air, where you again do 42 damage to yourself, but as a slightly shorter time. When doing this, if you charge up, if you get hit, you take the initial damage, like I said, without your HP. It negates that. But when you hit the EXE, it is by far the second largest stun inside of the game, and completely screws over the EXE. For the fact that if you stun the EXE, they just don't even know where you are anymore. And using Destructive Charge, you could use it as mobility, since it lasts for a really long time, and allows you to go really fast, almost as fast as Sonic's peel out. Now the one thing you do have to worry about is if you hit a wall. If you hit a wall, you get around 1.5 second end lag, where basically you stand still. This happens because you basically just crashed into a wall, so go figure. But during Last Man Standing, things do change up a bit. During Last Man Standing, not only does he have a 50% damage reduction, he also has an additional 25% damage reduction for a total of 75%. This means during Last Man Standing, if you haven't been hit the whole game, you go down 165 instead of 175, because the game is programmed to do that. But you technically have to be hit 17 times in order to actually be finished. This is absolutely crazy, because when it comes down to his abilities are a lot better. During Last Man Standing, like I said, you could just use his Destructive Charge to run away, then heal with self-repair. But instead of doing the normal 42 damage to you, his abilities only do 10 damage to yourself now. That's right, it removes 32 damage from yourself, and basically allows you to stun the EXE and get away. while only taking 1 hit of damage, which is really small compared to HP wise. And this is why many times you don't want to be a Metal Sonic during Last Man Standing. It's because if you're playing against the EXE, you're pretty much done for. But because of that, he is a really good character that can easily break out of any situation. But one thing you do have to worry about is being basically countered. For example, say if the EXE doesn't like Metal Sonics, they'll chase you down the entire time, giving you no time to heal. And the only 2 healers inside of the game, being Amy and Cream, cannot heal Metal Sonic because he's a robot. How do you heal a robot? Because of these reasons, Metal Sonic pairs up really well when he has teammates. But if he's left alone, he can still do a really good job on himself. But if you don't really know how to play him and you don't follow these tips, well, you're kind of done for. Now, to finish up the engineering trio, we're going on to the 3rd character that pairs up with Eggman and Metal Sonic, being Tails. Tails inside of this game works kind of like TD, where he's a long-range stunner / support. How Tails works inside of this game is basically, he has a giant arm cannon that has the longest cooldown inside of the game, this being 45 seconds. He also has 2 passive abilities and 2 abilities. His first ability is known as Animal Instinct. How this works is if the EXE gets too close to you, around 45 studs, you see an outline of them. So even if the EXE is invisible, you can tell exactly where they are if they're about to unappear from invisibility right beside you. His second passive is to be able to heal Metal Sonic instead of a 2 times faster, only 1.5 times faster. So this still significantly helps out Metal Sonic, but isn't as best as Eggman. His first ability is known as Arm Cannon, like I was explaining earlier. At the beginning of a match, you don't actually see a cooldown on your Arm Cannon. But if you look in the bottom left corner, you actually see a bar, and that's your potential cooldown. After that cooldown is finished, which is 45 seconds, then you can actually use your ability. When you're about to use your ability, you have to click it, and it has a 5-second charge up. Now, this might sound pretty bad to begin with, but I'll explain. After his 5-second cooldown, you shoot a giant laser beam that can stun the EXE for 10 seconds. That's right, 10 whole seconds you can stun the EXE. That's how crazy this guy is. But of course, like I said, it comes at the cost of a 50-second cooldown. Then, for his second ability, is known as Glide. Glide basically allows you to fly away from EXE, having a bar on how much you can go up, and after this bar goes down while you're gliding, well basically you just fall to the ground. Using this ability allows you to escape, and in version 0.2, this ability will actually be used in a way where you're able to carry teammates, presumably not Metal Sonic. But this works as a support and a carry. Now, how to actually use Tails is pretty important. For Tails, his arm cannon ability doesn't have any range limit. So as long as you can see that part of the map, you can hit that part of the map. Now, when charging up, say if you're on a map like Not Perfect, you can stand up on one of the pillars and just wait to see where the EXE is. Once you see him, you just click your button and blast him away from across the map. This also works on hill, but because of the walls, it's a little more challenging. And on hill gym, good luck. Then, after doing this, you can just fly away to the other side of the map, since many maps in this game are short lengthwise and not widthwise, so you're able to fly to the other side if the EXE tries coming for you, and do the same process again. Also, say if the EXE is about to use God's Trickery, you can start charging up your thing, because by the time they show up, you actually have your laser beam ability ready, and you're able to blast them away. But do remember, when using your laser beam ability, you are significantly slower. I mean, this kind of makes sense, because you're charging up this giant particle ion cannon, so if you were fast, that would be pretty broken. But quintessentially, how you want to play Tails is always staying as far back as you can. Like I said, normally paired up with Eggman or Cream. Cream because she's a pure support character, and you are able to help out kind of at close range, and Eggman because he's able to do the same thing with Metal Sonic, and the 2 healings do stack. So instead of a 2 times heal or a 1.5 times heal, it becomes a 2.5 times heal. When it comes down to Last Man Standing, is where Tails really changes. During Last Man Standing, Tails' ability goes down from a 45-second cooldown to a 15-second cooldown. Instead of a 5-second charge up to start, it's basically instant. This completely changes up how Tails plays, because instead of being a really long range support where you can slowly charge up your cannon, you're just basically brawling the EXE. I say this because by the time the EXE is finished being stunned, which is like I said, 8 to 10 seconds, you're already so far away, and if they try using God's Trickery or Invisibility to catch up, your arm cannon is just ready again. Now, unfortunately, the arm cannon doesn't stun him while he's using his grab ability, like in the air, because nothing can, but if he does grab into Survivor, then you can use the ability. This makes Tails, like I said, a support / long range stunner. The reason I say support is because of his interesting abilities, and the fact that you're not actually actively stunning him, but if your team is getting chased down, you can easily turn the tide of battle. But he also works really well during last man standing if you're all on his tails, because the fact that how long his stun is and how quickly you can use it. I always recommend you stay with one teammate because it's really important so you don't lose any HP. Also, if you're charging up, you always want to make sure to look around your surroundings because you can easily get hit because it does zoom in your screen. But overall, Tails is a really good survivor that many people just don't know how to use. But always remember, stay as far away as you can, you have infinite range, and be goated. Now, speaking of support, we're going on to the only pure support character inside of this game. This character is known as Cream the Rabbit. Cream the Rabbit, how she works, is kind of like TD if you ever played it. She's a healer. But inside of this game, how Cream works is really broken. First of all, she has two passives. First of all, she has one passive. Her passive allows her to fly. Basically, if you jump inside the air and click the A button again, or whatever button you use to jump, you're able to glide down slowly. Now, you can't actually control this glide to go up or down, but the fact that you can just glide is pretty important. Now, for her first ability, it is known as Heal, and this is where it's really all about with Cream. Cream has a little character known as Cheese, and when she uses a heal ability, she stands still for around 7 seconds. When doing so, anybody inside of her range gets healed for 70 HP at intervals of 10 per second. This basically means you're able to heal up an insane amount of HP, and any damage the EXE done basically gets whopped away. This is why as an EXE, many people always go for Cream first, because she is super broken. Think about it. Imagine you're being one shot and the EXE about to get you, let's say 20 HP, Cream comes by, heals you up to 90, now you're free shot again. But that does come in with a cost. It is the fact that if Cream goes below 50 HP, the little pet with her, known as Cheese, which is a chow, well, he just dies. And when this happens, her healing is significantly reduced. Instead of healing 10 per second, she now only heals 5 per second, which isn't really that big of a change, but it still significantly reduces her. Because now say if you're at 20 HP, instead of healing up to 90, you only heal up to 55, which is a major difference. And remember, that's pretty important because inside of this game, on average, if you have a full server, you're surviving for like 10 minutes. In those 10 minutes, you really want to heal her on your team. Now, coming on to her second ability is known as Dash. This one's pretty simple. Every couple of seconds, you're able to use a Dash ability. If you hit the EXE or Survivor, it gives you a speed boost bouncing away, but does like 2 damage to yours. Also, one thing to remind you about her first ability or heal is you cannot heal yourself with it. And I'll explain. You're able to heal up your teammates for 70 or 35 HP, but for Cream, she can only heal herself with the first interval. So say if she's at 80 HP, she can just heal herself to 90, or if she's at 80 with Cheese gone, you can only heal up to 85. But where she really changes in a character is during Last Man Standing. It really changes during Last Man Standing, where the fact that she becomes a self-healer now since there's no one else left. Instead of having the end leg to heal, basically if she has Cheese, she's able to heal 8 to 10 HP every 25 seconds, and if she doesn't, she heals 4 to 5. And remember, this is instant. Then her dash ability, instead of being a 15-second cooldown, is only like a 7-second cooldown, so you can use it a lot more often. Also, during Last Man Standing, she has a significantly smaller LMS than many of her characters, because I mean, you can't even stun the EXE. It really changes how you play with her from the fact that if you don't know what exactly you are doing, well then you're pretty screwed. But the fact that she's able to heal herself consistently during a match, and if the EXE doesn't know where you are, very easily able to turn the battle. Also, you can use the dash ability to juke out the EXE by either pushing them off to somewhere or jumping off and then bouncing back up. Now, how you play Cream is kind of like how you play Tails. Don't even look at the EXE. Many EXEs like to completely chase you down, but as long as you're with the Tails or like I said an Eggman, because since those three should probably stay together, you're able to heal up your teammates very efficiently and honestly, pretty well. But one thing you do have to worry about is finding your teammates. Believe me, there's so many times where half the lobby can't even find Cream because Cream's trying to find half the lobby. So they just run in an endless circle. And in maps on specifically like Hill Gym, if you don't actually have communications, because say your friends aren't playing Cream, then it gets very challenging. But if you are able to find her, you're able to heal very well. This is why normally as Cream, you should consistently stay in a certain area so that your teammates know exactly where you are. So for example, on Not Perfect, you can stand up on top of one of the pillars, and while you're up there, you're basically everyone's able to see. Then for her dash ability, honestly, use it whenever you really need to. You can use it to clear jumps, you can use it to bounce the EXE away, and just really whenever. And on maps like Not Perfect or any map with a bumper, you can always use it to fly super high in the sky, so if the EXE tries chasing you on the ground, you can just turn around and go back up to the area, which works as an effective loop for her. But if your teammates don't But unfortunately with her, if your teammates don't really help you out, she can't really do much during a chase depending on the situation. So this is why you have to play her as basically not even a backliner, a super backliner. You're playing otherworldly backliner. At that point, while everyone else is playing the sport, you're in Atlantic Ocean. Like, you don't want to be anywhere nearby. And that's generally how you play Cream. Now, on to considerably the most strongest and busted character inside of this game, pre-release, release, and even now, is Amy. How Amy works is she's a close range stunner that actually has free abilities. Every other character inside of this game will be getting free abilities in version 0.3, but as of now, she's the only character with it. Now, for her passive, she technically only has one passive, and it's the most broken thing you'll ever see. Her passive is known as tarot cards, where every 25 seconds you're able to roll 2 tarot cards, and each one have her own ability. Now, I wouldn't go through all of them because this is an ultimate guide, but honestly, there's only 3 you'll ever need. These being the Emperor, the Sun, and the Fool. If you use any of her cards in these 3s, then I'm revoking your right to play Amy, because you're not playing her correctly. How Emperor works is basically it gives you around a 1.5 speed increase, or since I think it got nerfed later, only a 1% speed increase, and it also makes you take 15% less damage. How the Sun works is you're able to heal up for 1 HP around every 2 seconds, and anyone standing near you will also have the same effect. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't heal you to full HP, except later, we'll get to it, and it only heals you and your teammates to 75. But if your teammates stand around you for too long, it actually starts blinding them, because it's the Sun. How tails work is your stun is significantly smaller than normal, but you get a speed boost. So using any 2 pairs of these cards works really efficiently, but I normally recommend the Emperor and Blaze, or the Fool and the Emperor. Using these 2 consistently allows you to heal yourself, your teammates, have a major speed increase, and also you take less damage. Now the reason why you don't use the other ones is because their buffs are way worse than their debuffs. Like for example, let's just do the Knuckles one for proof. He basically slows you down by 3 stuns per second and only gives you like a 5-second stun. But if you're walking like you just came out of the emergency room, well, I mean, you're not escaping the EXE. Then we're on to her first ability. Her first ability is known as Hammer Attack. Basically when you use this, you put your hammer up and you start running towards the EXE. When doing so, if you have the EXE, it stuns them for a certain amount of time, depending on what cards you have, and basically, yeah. But if you do jump while using this ability, if you use the jump ability and hit the EXE while in the air, it stuns the EXE and bounces you away, so you're able to gain either ground or height. This basically allows you to stun the EXE while gaining major distance at the same time. Her second ability, and probably most broken ability, is Hammer Throw. You throw your hammer at the EXE when you use the ability, and when this happens, you basically ragdoll the EXE and chuck him super far away while stunning. Now, if you thought this was kind of like TD, you're like, oh, you have to go grab your hammer. You don't. After, I want to say 10 seconds, the hammer just returns to you. So basically, you can just use her as a sniper where you just chuck the hammer at the EXE, run away, and it just comes back to you where you can attack her close range. Because of this, she's somehow a close range and a long range stunner at the same time, which makes no sense. Then, when it comes down to Last Man Standing, she actually has major changes. Her normal abilities stay practically the same, she gains 165 HP, yada yada. Only one thing changes, and it's busted. Her stun ability, which is a Blaze card, instead of letting you heal only to 75 and once per 2 ticks, during Last Man Standing, it heals you every single second up to 100 HP. Now, this might just sound busted, but by the time you catch up to... Now, depending on when you catch up to her, all of your damage could literally just be erased if she stunned you twice. And pre-patch Amy, for some reason, healed 5 HP a second practice. The only way you could basically get rid of her before was only by grabs. Then, depending on your combo, like I said, you can heal up to 100 HP, and the EXE has a significantly difficult time catching up to you. Since if you stun them and you only have the Emperor card, not the Fool, the stuns are pretty lengthy still, and you just can't catch up. But, if you are using the Emperor and the Fool card, you can outrun the EXE. This changes now where the stun speeds were decreased a little bit, but you're still basically as fast as the EXE. And before, in the pre-patch version, you could outrun him somehow. Yeah, apparently somehow Amy was faster than Sonic. Don't question the logic. And now, how you want to play Amy is really stay back until you get the correct ability. If you don't have the correct abilities, this really significantly reduces your usability and your utility. Because I mean, you're practically just standing still like a walking duck, waiting to get hit by anything. You have to abuse her in a way where you're able to trick the EXE. What I mean by this is get them to follow you, since your abilities allow you to significantly increase your range between them and always keep a constant chase. Inside of a normal match, like I said, you have to survive 10 minutes, but with Amy, you could probably survive all 10 of it if the EXE doesn't wise up quick. Plus, if the EXE turns invisible when you throw your hammer, by the time they use your uninvisibility and stuff, you just have your hammer back. So you always want to use it kind of like a mid-range, where if any of your teammates need help, you walk up and just bonk the EXE, or you throw from long range where no one is predicting this. For that, she is very useful, but depending on your RNG, you're kind of screwed sometimes. On to the final character for today's video, which is Knuckles the Echidna. Knuckles is probably the strongest close range stunner inside of the game, and you'll hear why. Knuckles has 2 passive abilities as of now. His reverse ability is kind of like Cream, where he's able to glide. Now, unlike Cream, when he uses his glide ability, after 2 seconds of flying, you just nosedive into the ground. So this works for a little bit, but it's not like you can fully fly across the map. His second passive is basically known as wall climb. If you jump onto a wall, you basically cling onto it, and you can keep doing this to either bounce upwards, because if a gap is close enough, you actually gain height, or you can use it in a way where you're able to grab onto the wall, the EXE follows you, and then you're able to bounce back up. This basically works in a way to trick the EXE, and allows you to do glide ability more efficiently. Now, for his first ability, it's pretty simple. It's a punch. You stand still for a second, and if the EXE is nearby, you're able to punch him, and it stuns him for around 4 seconds. But there is many variations to this one ability. Say if you jump when using your ability. Well, instead of doing the normal thing where you just stun him for 4 seconds wherever he lands, it does a ground pound attack, which stuns him at the same time, but does also ragdoll the EXE. And the stun time, if you don't know, only renders after the ragdoll is finished. Then, depending on how long you stand still for, if you stand still for around 5 seconds, you get into your second stance mode, where you instead of stunning for 4 seconds, you stun for 5 seconds. Then, if you wait a little bit longer, I'm pretty sure 3 seconds, you go into your third stance mode where your arms start burning like in a blue fire, and when you stun the EXE, it stuns him for 6 seconds and gives him a burn effect. If you don't know what a burn effect is, it basically slows the EXE. And now, for his second ability, it is known as Counter. And for his second ability, it is known as Counter. How Counter works is when you use the ability, you stand still for a couple of seconds, glowing white. And if the EXE hits you, it ragdolls them and stuns them for the same time as a punch. Now, if you get to your second mode during your punch, you are able to swap to your counter. So if the EXE is about to hit you, you're able to swap to your counter and take less damage, or really no damage. And if the EXE does try punching you while in your punch ability, forgot to mention it, you only take 15 damage instead of a normal 42. This basically gives you a 75% damage decrease while you're charging up your punch. So it does work sometimes depending on how low you are in HP. And for his counter, there's really not much to be said. You just use it if the EXE is trying to grab you or you think you can predict the EXE, but other than that, it's just a reliable counter. But now, for Last Man Standing, he is really interesting during Last Man Standing, for a fact that he doesn't get anything. Many of her characters, like I've stated throughout the video, have different changes to their abilities, HPs. Nope, Knuckles just has his fists and he's going for the EXE. I mean, this kind of makes sense because like I said, he has a really long stun. His abilities really work well for both mobility and tactics, so it doesn't really like he needs one. But how to necessarily play Knuckles is the interesting part. Knuckles the Echidna, how you want to play him, is complete close range, but also a little mid-range. What I mean by mid-range is for a fact that if the EXE gets stunned or is chasing someone else, you can stay back and start charging your punch, so when the EXE turns the corner while chasing him, you can stun him for significantly longer, other than just running up to the EXE yourself. Doing this allows you to significantly play better, because for a fact that you're able to get the EXE off guard and stun him for an additional 50% time, it's really useful. You could also use them sometimes as a backliner to defend your supports. If you have a Knuckles with a Tails and Cream, or just one of them separately, if the EXE tries using God's Trickery to catch up to them, you can use the counter ability easily to say Tails is charging up, or you can use your punch ability so the other two can escape. Knuckles is equivalent to Eggman, but basically can stun instead of being survivalist. And for that fact, he is really useful when it comes to stunning for how long his stuns are, but you can easily get outplayed. For example, if the EXE thinks you're about to use a counter, and you do, he could just not attack you, and you basically take 80 damage for free. Because you get hit once, and by the time you start running, he's so close to you again, you're most likely getting hit. But he does also have a secret passive, kind of like Sonic. The devs stated that it isn't a passive, but how it works is able to counter stun. What I mean by this is you're able to stack stuns onto EXE. This means if a Sonic hits a drop dash, a Tails uses his ability, Eggman stuns, any of those, he can punch the EXE again before he gets his invincibility frames back and increase the stun for longer. But it is reduced slightly. This means he works both as a comboer where he's able to stun, and theoretically you could combo it into a freeze combo, where first Tails uses a super long laser beam attack, you charge up to your blue fist, punch the EXE, and then Sonic uses his drop dash ability, stunning the EXE for around like 15 to 20 seconds, which is crazy. But as Knuckles, you always want to make sure you have teammate nearby so you can save him, because he is definitely the bronze. But with that, that is my ultimate guide for outcome memories. If there's anything I missed, which I'm pretty sure I did something with Sonic, make sure to comment it down below, because believe me, it's been like an hour and a half recording this. I don't even remember what I said. If you like more content like this, make sure to comment below. If you want to see any other games, then that's great. But anyways, that's the end for today's ultimate guide. If I don't see you next video, then I'll see you in game. Later.